I'm attempting to complete every single GameCube game, and I'm using a random number generator to pick the next game. Last episode, we got behind the wheel of a NASCAR and played NASCAR Thunder 2003, and in this episode, we're unlocking the Wings of Our Heart and playing Baten Kaitos Origins. Baten Kaitos Origins was released on September 25th, 2006, and was developed by Monolith Soft and published by Nintendo. This is our next game that will be broken up into parts, so this won't be the whole game in this video. Before we get started, make sure to like this video because it helps out the channel, and subscribe if you're new so you don't miss any of the future games. Without further ado, this is my experience with Baten Kaitos Origins. We're heading to Owainaway on our beautiful golden ship when Millie tells us that she attended school at the School of Magic that is in the main city of the island. Gilo confronts her and is like, "I thought you were a sheltered girl and never seen the outside world." Which she responds that her trips were strictly to and from school and chaperoned the whole time. But it's nice to know that someone has been to this island before. While this is going on, we get attacked by a Dark Service ship, and we find out that we can only try to outrun the ship because ours doesn't have any weapons on it, which seems sort of like a bad design in my opinion. We get shot down because we can't outrun it and end up in the jungle area because our ship crashes. We all end up outside of the ship somehow and we're all knocked out. Don't know how that happened. Soggy comes to first, and if you're playing this, I would recommend saving the game before you do anything else. But make sure it's a second save file because the boss we're about to fight is the hardest in the whole game, and it's not even close. After saving, we wake everyone up, and Millie knows that we're in bad shape because the jungle is dangerous, and the Holo Holo bird is looking for food for its babies. We have no choice but to fight this thing, and it's going to be a battle. This fight took me like 5 tries and over 45 minutes to actually beat the boss. The issue with this fight is that the main bird will lay eggs during the fight that will then hatch, and that will cause little birds to come into the battle. So we have to worry about that. And then the little bird's main goal is to heal the big bird. So when fighting the battle, we have to make sure the little birds stay dead and then attack the big bird when we get our chance. I was warned about this boss fight in my Twitch channel chat, but I didn't think it was going to be this bad of a fight. I tried to keep most of my attacks on the small birds and then attack once in a while with Soggy or Millie. I don't know if that was the best strategy, but it's the one that allowed me to finish the fight. If you want me to upload a separate video of the boss fight in its completion, let me know down in the comments because I'm going to have to cut this one short because if I speed it up too much, it's going to get very choppy. We're able to finish the fight, and the first thing I did when I could was save the game because I did not want to fight that thing again. The experience we get from the fight is worthwhile, and in our fight, one of the small birds were alive after taking down the big bird. This was beyond stressful. This jungle is pretty neat though in its design, having us jump from section to section using the rocks and the water in the area. There are a bunch of branching paths, and it makes it feel like you could get lost in the jungle without problems. We come across this big elephant, which is basically an elephant, and we need to use it to get out of the looping area. To achieve this, we have to get some butterflies that will eat it or something. I don't understand why they're so ruthless. And then you use this bird that's in the trees to wake it up. Then it will stampede through the jungle and we can finally escape and head to the city we need to get to. We finally arrive to the city of Komome, the city of flowers. This city is made completely of flowers, and I think the design of this city is one of my favorites in the game because it just looks great. The people that live here look like they would be super happy, but we need to find the queen and ask her about pro-machination and see what her stance is on the topic. I decided to check out the school before meeting with the queen, but there isn't much to do here as of right now. So it's time to meet the queen, Queen Corellia, and she tells us that they remain neutral and don't want anything to do with helping either side in the issue. After we get our answer from her, we step outside and call Varus, who tells us that it's fine and we can head back and meet with him. Millie makes us check out the school again and talk to some of the professors, and then we head back to the ship to find out that the ship is broken and we can't fly anywhere unless we fix it. Since we don't have any other options, we decide to go back to Komome and ask the queen if she can help us with getting a replacement part for the ship, so that we can actually leave the island. When we get back, we find out the queen isn't currently there, and her first knights tell us that even if she was there, that they don't do anything with machines and they only use the nature. Then the guard suggests that the School of Magic might be of some help. One of the teachers there tells us that they'll give us a landmark stone which can help us get the ship repaired if we get a credit in each of the classes in the School of Magic. 2 of them are pretty simple and not much happens, but the 2 main ones are making the classic teacher not boring, and then we have to take a verbal test in another class and be the last one in the room, because if you get the answers wrong, then the professor teleports you out of the classroom and you have to try again. It's pretty easy if you've been paying attention to the game's story up to this point. To make the class less boring, we have to get these cookies for the election and take them to this guy in the dock of the city. The problem is, though, that we can't leave the area with more of one color than the other because of some rule of the city, I guess. We have to take an even amount and bring it to this guy. It takes forever when you don't have room with your Magnus. I had to go back and forth like 3 times to finish this. The guy will let us take his good cheers from him and give them to the classics professor. We only need 3 of these to get his class to be less boring, and for us to get credit for the class. After all this, we can go back to the first professor and get our landmark stone. It's a long part of the game, and it feels a bit unnecessary in my opinion, but it is what it is. When we head back to the jungle, we run into a koa monkey that steals our landmark stone, and we have to chase it around this area, where it hides over and over again, until we are finally able to get it back from him. I don't know what it is about this part of the game, but it seems like they just add parts that take forever for no real reason. Once we get the stone back, we head to the little village on the other side of the island, called the Waterfall Village of Opu. It's a village made right at the base of a waterfall, and they're waiting for someone in the village to finish building the water wheel that they need to power this village. That same person is the person that we need to try and build us a new part for the ship. We're going to meet them pretty soon, and the relationship between them and Soggy is going to make Millie really upset. We meet her in her house, and she tells us that she could probably make us something out of wood if it was wood from the celestial tree. The strongest wood known in the world, I guess. This girl's name is Lolo, and she's very upbeat and touchy-feely with Soggy during this part. After talking about how they could get wood from the tree for her to make our part of the ship and the water wheel, she gets really excited and embraces Soggy with a very aggressive hug, which sets off Millie. Millie wants to hang out at Komome, but Soggy said he made a promise, so he's going to get the wood for Lolo. And then Millie calls him out for being a trooper all of a sudden. This made me laugh because she's really upset over all this, and it's showing that she really cares about him. And he's pretty unaware of the situation. Millie storms off, and then we can control Soggy again. We head to the celestial tree now, and we get stopped outside. They tell us that it's off limits to us, and that if we want to enter, we have to get permission from the queen. Soggy asks for just a branch, and they're not having it. It seems like there is some issue happening on the island, but we decide to head back to Komome and ask the queen if we can enter the tree and get some branches. When we arrive there, there are a bunch of troops that pass us at the entrance of the palace, but we proceed anyways. When we come inside, the queen is giving out orders to the troops and then tells us that the Empire has entered the tree and that they need to protect the tree. We offer our services without taking a side and ask if we could just get some branches that fell off the tree in return. The queen considers it, and then we leave and head back to the celestial tree. This is a lot of back and forth during this part, and we finally make it to the next dungeon of the game, the celestial tree vine roots. This is exactly how you would picture it. It's a bunch of roots going into a bunch of different directions. This dungeon can be very small if you want it to be. We get inside and the Empire is able to get to the middle of the tree using their flying barrel things. But we don't have one, so we can't get to it. We decide that Lolo might be able to build us something, and yet again Millie gets upset over this. We leave, and when we come outside, Lolo is waiting for us and tells us that she can build us something to cross the area, but she will need drag roots of all the different elements, so we have to go back inside and get them. But before we do, she tells us that we can't do it without Woodfella, a little puppet thing that we can control to have drag us the roots to us because they're going to be in areas that we can't reach. When we get back inside, we summon our little guy, and we can run around new sections of the vine roots to grab the drag roots. The only thing we have to be careful is if the enemies try to attack us, the Woodfellow will run back to us and we have to start over. It's pretty easy overall, but we have to take our time to get certain parts. Once it's brought back to us, we can collect the drag root and return Woodfellow back into Magnus. We get the lightning one first because it's right next to the opening and pretty easy to grab. The next one is further away, but isn't that bad. It's the fire drag root. We get attacked by some flying creatures in the next area. Then we collect the ice drag root. We can get the dark drag root by burning some of the trees so that we're able to get through and grab it. We have one left now. We get the last one in another area of the branches, which is the holy one. I think you can do this in whatever order you want to, but that's the order I did it in. Once we get all of them, we can head back outside, and Lolo is waiting to build us this cart thing that will allow for us to get to the middle of the tree. That was a lot to do, but now we're in the middle of the tree, and guess who's waiting for us in this area? It's our good friend Valara and Shanaf. We're too late, so they have already gotten what they needed to in the area. Shanaf mocks us because that's what he does at this point in the game. They pulled all the wings of the heart from the people in the tree, and Valara is attacking the tree for some reason. We get pulled into a battle, and an Umbra comes out of nowhere to help protect the tree. The roots attach itself to the Umbra, and now we have to fight this boss in a way that we haven't done before in this game. We have to attack this Umbra, but only when it's in a certain position. If we attack otherwise, it does damage, and we'll fail the battle. And lose. Valara's attacking it as well, so we have to work quickly and smart to get this boss fight done. This is a pretty easy battle, and I just waited for the position to change and would attack with all my party members. It made this battle short and super easy. I like that it had a change though, and we just didn't have to beat down the Umbra until the cutscene would take place or whatever. After the fight, Soggy doesn't get his normal headache, and the Umbra is becoming smaller because their roots aren't feeding it energy. But Valara is like, we have a mission to do, and I'm bringing this thing back with me. She shoots it with a laser from her tail, and of course this causes Soggy to get another headache and pass out again. Another recap of what happened, and then we return back to the dungeon that we were last with Seth and the party. This isn't anything new because it's the same one, but just more of it. We continue to just go with the group, and we work our way through the dungeon. When we get to the end of this dungeon, we get another scene where the group asks for help of the Dark Brethren. Thoron still has no idea what is happening, but they basically tell him that there isn't another option and to keep his mouth closed. This is basically making a deal with the devil. We ask for the strength to take down Wiseman, and in return, the Brethren can have their souls. The Brethren agrees to these terms once everyone states that they will give up their soul, and then challenges us to a battle to see if we're really strong enough. We're thrown into a boss fight with this massive flying lion, dragon, bat, snake thing, and this boss fight is actually really easy. I was expecting this part to be a lot more challenging, but honestly, it's just attacking a lot and then healing every couple of turns. I wanted this fight to be much more difficult. Once we win, the Brethren lends their strength to us, but it's the power of darkness. Seth is happy about this, and we return back to the ship, where they talk about what they should call themselves. It's 5 people as one, and they come up with a name for the group instead of individual names. The group decides that they are going to call themselves Malpercio, which was the hill that was out back when they grew up together. It's a weird choice, but it's the same name that we've been hearing about this whole time. The group decides to head to bed, and we talk to Millie and Gilo about what we had just heard. They figured out that we're in the world from 1,000 years ago, just like the legend states. But Millie says it can't be because they're just like us. Soggy says that they might seem like us, but they're much stronger than them. 1,000 times stronger. Seth and the group are heading to go to war with Wiseman, and Millie figures out that this is going to be the War of the Gods. We're getting ready to solve a lot of questions from this world. We meet everyone at the top of the ship and go over the game plan one more time about defeating Wiseman at Kujam. Seth says there is going to be dragons and the battle is going to be tough. When we get to Kujam, there isn't a single person there like before, and it looks like Wiseman has started the ceremony already. We have to hurry now and get to the other side of Kujam and get to the battlefields of Atria on the back of the village. The fight has already started when we get there, and dragons are catching everything on fire. I would count this as a dungeon, but honestly, it's just running around and avoiding enemies and fire. Our goal for this area is to find Wiseman and nothing else at this point. When we get to the end of the area, we come across all the people of Kujam, and they're going to fight us to protect Wiseman. Thorin talks about how their eyes are not right and that their hearts have already been taken. So we're going to have to fight our way through them. As with everything in this game, Soggy has a massive headache right before we're going to need to fight, and we get another recap and come back to the Celestial Tree, where Valara is in the process of collecting the Umbra. They never have any reason to care about us in this game. Why don't they just take us out now while they can? Soggy doesn't want to listen because he wants to go back 1,000 years and help fight with everyone. During this time, we're getting surrounded by soldiers, and Valara decides to notice us now and tells us that our relationship is now over and she's tired of seeing us. She wants to kill us this time. We go into a fight with her where the idea of the fight is just to attack and do damage and heal until she does her laser tail attack and takes us down. This happens so much during this game, but it makes sense that we're not strong enough to take them down right now. After the boss fight, Valara hits us with one more laser, and we're about ready to die when the Umbra decides to move, and the soldiers tell her that they need to get the Umbra out of the tree, giving us a chance to retreat for now. When we get out, Soggy has a breakdown and doesn't understand why he isn't strong enough to take down the enemies that have Pro Machina. He blames his spirit, which happens to be us, for not being good enough. Kilo stands up for us in this moment and tells him how much we've helped out over the journey so far. Killua doesn't want to listen to all this and decides it's time to go see the queen so that we can get those branches from the tree. Soggy shuts up and sadly leaves the area. Once we get back to the queen, she tells us that it's their fault for not seeing it about to happen and that we can go get some branches from the tree. She still doesn't join forces with us, but at least she lets us get the branches. So that's helpful. She does it in a sly way though and just removes her forces so we can go in and get them. It doesn't make it look like she's helping us. Weird how this island works, but it was nice that someone isn't that eager to help us. We head back to the vine root and get some branches that are in the area. Then we take them back to Lolo and give them to her, which allows for her to build the part that we need to fix the ship and the water wheel, finally after all that time. She gives us another huge hug and Millie gets super angry again. We can finally leave now. This part of the game was super long. When we get back to the ship, Lolo has to put the piece in because all of us don't know what to do to repair it. I love that the guy that flies the ship doesn't have any idea what to do. Anyways, we head back to Alfara to meet with Varys, but when we get there, Gildablain tells us that he has been summoned by the Senate, and he's not currently there. Gildablain gives us a room to stay in so that we can rest, and that he will let us know when Varys is back. When we get to the room, we talk between everyone to figure out everything that has happened up to this point in the game. We talk about how Shanath was in the Ogden residence the night of his murder, and how they don't understand why Shanath murdered the Emperor and blamed us instead of letting us do it. That's mystery number one. The second thing they discuss is how they failed this mission from her machination, but allowed the leaders to see what the threat of the Empire was. Then they talk about why they always get sent back 1,000 years every time they encounter an Umbra, and Gilo and Millie tell Soggy that they aren't going anywhere and that they will stay with him until the end. Then a soldier comes into the room and lets us know that Varys is back and we can meet with him. He tells us that everything is fine, but the election is tomorrow and that's going to decide everything. So we should rest up because we don't know what's going to happen the next day. We stay the night and then we head to the courtyard to find out the results of the election. When we arrive at the election, there are closing lines from Gildablain and Shanath about the candidates, which is just trying to get people to swing their votes. But Shanath brings out Soggy's mom from nowhere and decides to show the danger of spiriters. They then force her to bring out her wings and then they rip them out of her body. There is no real reason to do this besides to set Soggy off, but it is brutal to do this in front of everyone. I wouldn't be happy about this if I was just in the audience. When this is about to happen, Millie yells at Baha, and we find out that she is his daughter, which I always suspected, but it hadn't been confirmed until now. She's been with us this whole time, and when she was sneaking off, she was telling our plans and actions to her father. What a betrayal. But to be fair, she's trying to get them to stop before they rip out Soggy's mom's wings, But Baha just walks away without saying anything. He's going way too far with this. Soggy at this point has lost it and decides that he's going to attack the soldiers and pushes Millie out of the way. He's too late though, and his mother's wings get torn out of her body. He does come up and murder all the soldiers that were responsible for the act, so he got that at least. Because he lost control of his emotions, he starts getting that aura around him and becomes an Umbra himself. This was shocking to me because I wasn't thinking that he was an Umbra as well. I knew he had some sort of tie-in with them, but I wasn't expecting him to be one. How crazy was this reveal? This is my favorite reveal from this section. After he turns, the Empire brings out a tank and shoots Soggy a bunch of times, causing his Umbra form to fall to the ground and pass out. I think I covered everything in this scene, but a lot happens, and I would recommend just watching the whole scene yourself if you want to know anything else that happens during this part. Because we pass out, when we come to, we're back on the battlefield outside of Kujam with Seth in the group, and most of the people that were attacking us are now dead at this point. Seth tells us that we have to watch because we can't let our guard down, they'll try to kill us. We decide to take out the rest of the Spiriters in one single attack, and then the screen turns red. And when we come back, the screen is dark with like a purple shade to it. The party snaps back into themselves at this point and can't believe what they have done. When some floating sorcerers show up and call each one of them out by name, and when that happens, a puppet that looks just like Gilo comes down and kills them, one by one until it gets to us. Then they called our full name, Marno R. Rise, which is the name we gave our Spiriter at the beginning of the game. This means something, and we're going to find out soon. While the sorcerers are talking, it's two of them, and they have the same voice that Gilo has in current day, which is an interesting thing to point out. Finally, we get called out, and the Gilo-looking puppet attacks us. We don't just die, however, we end up fighting it. And what I can tell you at this moment is that this is Gilo, but I don't know if they say anything about it quite yet. Anyways, we have to fight Gilo in a boss battle, and this one is difficult. Gilo packs a lot of punch and has this attack that does a massive amount of damage to the whole party. So this boss fight is a bit of luck and staying healthy. After a couple tries, we were able to defeat Gilo, so that's good at least. But after the fight, Gilo comes up to Soggy and stabs him in the stomach, killing him. This isn't actually Soggy though, but Marno. When we come to, we're locked up in a random dark room somewhere, so it doesn't seem like they actually killed us. There is a very long scene where Soggy and your spirit have a moment to make sure each one of them are okay. Then Soggy asks his spirit about being Malpurcio, which makes Soggy upset that he's not a true spiriter, but just has the soul of a person from the past. Then he's upset that his spirit never told him anything about who it was. It's a heartfelt moment because they just talk it out alone in a dark room. You have to make a decision on how you want to handle this situation. When Soggy asked about you taking over his heart completely, but when you do, it purifies the soul and we're strong enough to break free from the chains that we were locked up there by. Soggy and his spirit are one again. Millie and Gilo show up after this. They're there because they were coming to save Soggy, or at the very least be able to talk to him. They let us know that they have saved Soggy's mom and fled and took her back home, but she's weak and suggests that we should go see her. We get a brand new card here. That is Soggy's strongest attack. This will allow for us to do damage to the pair of machines now, so that we can actually stand a chance against them. When we come out of the room, we're in an all-machine dungeon, and we have to use spark shrooms to power the elevators and little crafts that move around the rooms. That's the theme of this dungeon. It's nothing crazy, but it's nice to have us use Magnus mixing again. At the end of the dungeon, we come to this giant elevator and take it up, to find that Shanath is there waiting for us to arrive. He tells us that we're the only subject that could make up with this afterling inside them, and that Millie knew about it the whole time. He then tells us that he's supposed to spare us, but he won't let a monster leave the area, and then he equips some Paramachina, and we have to fight him. With the new power card that we just unlocked, this fight is super easy. We just have to save up some MP for Soggy and then attack using that card, and it does a massive amount of damage to Shanath. Just heal otherwise and you'll be good to go. After the fight, Shanath is laying on the ground, bleeding a bunch. And he decides to tell us that we're a subject by the Emperor, where he decided that he was going to put afterlings in people, and they wanted to see if any of them would hold up. Most people didn't make it, and some people were able to survive, but not realize that they had the power. But Ogden became cocky and spent all of the money of the Empire to fund this program, without the people of Mintaka even knowing about it. We also find out that Shanath is one of them. They experimented on, but couldn't fully harness the power. He runs away from us and heads up to the bedroom in the dungeon, and is just sort of laying on the floor by the windows. Soggy isn't happy with him, and they all know that he's dying. We also find out that Shanath killed the Emperor because he despised him so much that he wanted to be the one to kill him with his own hands. After he tells us this, we just leave because we don't have anything else to say to him, and then he goes on about how he was a perfect heir or something, and then he eventually dies. After all that excitement, we can finally head back to Sheraton to visit our mother and see how she's doing. The kids are all very worried about her, and she finally wakes up when she hears Soggy's voice and tells us that we shouldn't worry about her and she just needs some rest. And then she lays back down and goes back to sleep. The doctor tells us that she's in poor condition, but not physically, but more like emotionally. She didn't show any signs of waking up until Soggy got there. It's basically the idea of being super depressed is what I got from it, which makes sense. She did just get her wings of the heart ripped out. Once the cutscene is over, the party has a conversation about what they want to do now. Soggy wants to help his mom and search for a way to make her better. Millie wants to visit this small island she would go to when she was a kid called Neckar. When we go there, she wants to tell us everything about her that she's been hiding. And Gilo wants us to visit Dur, which is the homeland of the children of the earth, in hopes of finding something about their past or what their true purpose is. We can tackle these in any order we please, so the game sort of branches out at this point. I really like that about this game. As we're leaving Sheraton, the doctor comes running after us and tells us that he found a way to save Soggy's mother. We need to find this herb called Heart Embrace. The legend says this herb can strengthen one's heart. Even the gods could use it for that reason. The herb has been extinct ever since the Wars of the God, but Millie, being quick on her feet, suggests that since we've been in the past, maybe there is some way for us to go back in time and grab some Heart Embrace from there. And they think that Soggy's portion of Malpersio could take us back there if we had something that was from that time period. They land on trying to do this near the Briar Clock in Sheraton. I was most interested in this quest, so that's the one that I did first. We head over to the Briar Clock and give it a try. It does work, and we're able to freely go between past and present in the game now, which opens up a lot of things for us. We can check out new areas and even get materials for some of the side quests in the game. But for us, the most important thing is to head to the Matar Highlands and try to find some Heart Embrace. This might be one of the areas with the most annoying theme in the entire game. It rains on and off all the time in this area, and if the rain gets on you, it will cause you to pass out and even die. So we have to hide under these massive looking lily pad plants when it rains so that we don't get knocked out. The idea of this area is to plant seeds to create more of these lily pad things, and then eventually knock this boulder off the cliff and block the water from being able to drain from the pond in the middle of the area, causing it to fill all the way up, and we can jump across the pond using lily pads. Once at the back of the area, we find the Heart Embrace, but there is a massive centipede looking creature right over it. And the only way we're going to get this herb before it's eaten is to fight this thing. So that's the next boss fight for the game, and this one isn't all that bad. The worst part of this fight is that the centipede can put a timer on your characters that will count down after so many turns, and then the character dies and we have to revive them. It's like the idea of Perish Song in the Pokemon series. Outside of that, the boss fight isn't that bad. Once we defeat the boss, we can grab some Heart Embrace and return home. But we're surrounded by a bunch of these centipedes, and it's not looking good for us until a random white dragon shows up and burns them all to a crisp. I don't know if there was a tie-in somewhere in the series, but this was random and we got super lucky. They're all impressed by the dragon. Then we pick a bunch of Heart Embrace because I didn't know how much of it I was going to need for this mission. And then we can finally leave and head back to Modern Timeline. When we get back to the orphanage, we give the Heart Embrace to our mother, and then we get flashbacks of a lot of things. But the most important part is that Jean stole us out of the Empire and fled with us because she didn't want them to experiment on us. She left Mintaka and fled all the way to Sheraton and raised Soggy without telling him about anything. I feel like this is pretty fair because you wouldn't want to let your child know that he's just an experiment. After a night, the herbs work and she's back to her normal self, upbeat and cheerful. We cured her heart, or at least made her feel better using that herb. Soggy tells his mom that we can't stay for long to help out, but his mom is happy that he finally found something that he wants to do, and we can now move on to one of the other missions that we need to do in order to advance the plot of the game. The next mission I chose was the one about Millie, because I wanted to see what all she was hiding from us during the whole game. We head over to this small island known as the Neckar Quiet Lands. That is extremely pink and red. This place is interesting, and she used to visit here while she was a child. But there used to be statues when she would come in there as a child. Once we get that cutscene, we're able to look around the area. This area is all about trapdoor floors and nothing else really. I don't know if there was anything hidden besides that, but for the most part, this area was just that. When we get past the first section of this dungeon, we come to this lake and waterfall that the water changes every day, which is pretty cool, and I wish that happened in real life. I would really like that. Millie then tells them about who she really is. She tells us that her father told her to just observe Soggy and find out if he really was a spiritor, and that if he was a spiritor, then they would eventually have to kill Soggy. She tells us that she didn't know about Soggy's mother being involved, and ever since she started hanging out with us, the more she began to like us, and that we were good people. She then asked for forgiveness and that she still wants to travel with us. Soggy asked her one question, which is very simple. He just wanted to know if she really thought he had a guardian spirit inside of him. Which she responds saying that she did. And then Soggy's like, alright, you trusted me, now I can trust you. You can stay with us. Even Gilo lets this one slide, which is kind of shocking. Everyone forgives her and now the party is together again. It's a pretty nice moment, and I really liked the waterfall in the background. She wants to show us one more thing before we leave, and we head up to the top of the island. This is the summit of the area, I think. There's supposed to be a bunch of rocks that are in the shape of people at the top of the summit, but when we get there, they're all knocked over, and they don't look like people anymore. She's very surprised by this, and even sad. It's her childhood, and it's just all gone. While we're all talking, we get attacked by a giant bird, which she blames for knocking over the rocks. This fight is long, but it's very easy. This thing has a bunch of health and can put everyone to sleep, which just adds to the length of the fight. If I were to give a strategy for this one, I would say stay awake and heal often. Then attack as much as you can while you're awake. It's not a bad fight though, and after we defeat it, we come out to Millie crouching on the ground. And she feels like she wasted our time for even coming there because the rocks are all knocked over. Soggy and Gilo do a really good job cheering her up here. Soggy talks about how some of the rocks look like people, and Gilo talks about the view and how it's breathtaking. Then Soggy tells her even though they all got knocked over and broken, they can just build new ones. The three of them together. Which I feel like this shows the type of character that Soggy is. I really like the end of this mission. This is where I'm going to end this part of the game, and we'll come back with one more part to finish out one more mission, some side stuff, and the final areas of the game. So make sure to check that out, but for now, thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.